Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Coffee Time. This morning we're over in the book of Ecclesiastes, and we talk about how um, kind of like the power of two. How it's very important for us to have a support channel. A three chord is not easily broken. So being over in the book of Ecclesiastes, we're in chapter 4, 9 through 12, and it's Solomon, and he's telling us that two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two people lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A three-forward cord is not quickly broken. We look at this here where Solomon is talking about, he has all the riches and all the fame and everything, wisdom, everything that he could possibly want. But it's like there's nothing more devastating than being alone. And yeah, he could buy friends. People were interested in him only because of his money. They were only interested in just to hear his wisdom. But really, when he felt alone, he had all the wives that he could possibly want. He can buy as many horses, he can buy, any palace, he can have as much sex as he wanted. When you think about how many wives and concubines he had, I mean, it was a lot. So he had everything that he could possibly want and desire, and there was no shortage of it, honestly. So, but it seemed here, and you're talking about, is that Saul, you can have everything in the world, but without someone to be there to lift you up that truly cares about you and loves you, you become very lonely. And he's talking about how he warns us about those who separate themselves from other people. We look over in First Peter chapter 5 and 8, 9, it teaches us that separating from other believers makes us vulnerable to spiritual attacks, since all of us can be deceived. Even Solomon, in his great wisdom, towards the end of his life, was deceived, where he was making, by his wives of all things, making uh, little temples and like it for his wives, for their gods, and he was building these things for them, and so they could worship their own gods. And he was, bowing down to them as well. So he was vulnerable to, with all of his wisdom, even he was vulnerable to spiritual attack. And the devil finally worked his way through, and became deceived. And so what Solomon is telling us is that we desperately need others to keep us accountable. We need that accountability partner. Jesus sent his, over in Luke chapter 10, verse 1, Jesus sent his disciples out in twos. Anyone who's done any kind of evangelism, they know and they understand how it's important, to go out and, in buddy teams, that when, you talk to people, because it helps lift people up. It helps, keep us accountable. And it also, if people come up with objections and you don't know, the other person a lot of times can chime in and be able to, lend assistance, in their own wisdom experiences that they've been through. Even the Apostle Paul, and all of his courage and all the gifts that he had, his giftedness, needed people to cheer him up on various occasions, especially when him being, put in jail. But the effect of two people working together is much greater than those who, labor on their own. Plus, you have someone to talk to. You don't feel alone. Someone that you trust, that is walking this journey, with you. And there's a bond and something special that is there. And then when one falls, the other can lift them up. And, they are stronger together. Times of pain and struggle, they come upon all of us. And and it is a tragic thing when we have no support, no one there to lift us up. And, when we are truly by ourselves, and so when we look, It's always important that we have that spiritual partner, even if you don't go out and evangelize anything like that. But it's important to have someone that you can trust and depend on that would be there, to help lift you up and keep you accountable in our walk with the Lord, to help defend us and, in times of spiritual attack. And this is why it's important, for believers to come together as a true community, not in a community that's self serving, but a community that is selfless, that are servants helping each other, that's through sacrifice, that lift each other up, and show the love of Christ, through our actions. And it's important. And then when the world sees us coming together and lifting each other up, it's a powerful statement that shows the light of Christ in a dark world. You guys take care. God bless and have a wonderful day.